right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. The conversation starts right now. We are calling it Voice of the Comrades. This is a show where we give young people a chance to air their views, talk about matters, politics, and everything in between there, their state of living in the universities, what they think are their greatest concerns, all that. Hits, misses, everything in between there. And my guests are with me in studio. Rahma Jarso Saraka is a student at the University of USIU, United States University International. Yeah. Thank you very much for making time. That's first on my right here. Right next to her is Mark Ouko, who's a youth leader. Thank you very much for making time. Followed by Daisy Otieno, a student at the University of Nairobi. Thank you for making time. On the upper deck is Wainaina Gishere, a student at the University of Nairobi and a member of the Funding Model Committee. Thank you very much for making time. Followed by Chesang Samoe, who's a law student at the Kenyatta University. Thank you very much for making time. And David Msongori, President ACSAP, Association of County Students Association Presidents. Thank you very much for making time. Jarso, I'll start with you before we get into whether the country is heading in the right direction or the wrong direction. What is the state of higher education in your view? What needs to be fixed? What is working?
When it comes to higher education, this is actually based on the scholarships and the help that we have as a country that is being funded to students in the higher institution. And let me say, sometimes these helps and loans are not dispersed early. So that has been the main challenge when it comes to higher funding model. Okay. So, yeah.
So help and the loans, and there's a delay.
Yes.
It is important to mention from the onset now that also joining us online is Dr. Edwin Wanyonyi, the CEO, Universities Fund. Thank you for making time. And all of you can pose any questions you have to him. The first one that has already come in from Jarso is the delay in the disbursement of help. We know the University Fund deals with the money around that area and the funding of schools and the new funding model. We also have a member of the committee here. But let me bring in Mark into this. Mark, what is your assessment of the higher education sphere and what needs to change so far?
Thank you so much, Trevor, for having me this morning. I think in relation to the question of education funding, I think the problem often has always been when there is, changing from one academic calendar to the other, there's normally a delay, particularly in the release of funds. And the release of funds particularly normally comes when the students have already joined the institutions. So like, for example, even just last week is when the CS was saying that the capitation that was needed, in paying staffs who are at the institutions of higher learning, about 2.4 billion is when it was being released. I think almost 2 to 3 weeks when students had already joined. So I think one, particularly around the timing when the capitation that is needed in funding the funding the students come, it's normally late. But also due to understand that this is a new funding the funding model by itself aims at paying for the students who come from the least, economically deprived families. And I think this system change, often when you see that when there's a new system coming up, the first stage is normally called storming. And I think over the next 5 years or so, I think, our schools will get much in acclimatizing with the current new education funding model.
Okay, let me bring in Daisy on this. Daisy, from the University of Nairobi's perspective, what are the issues you're seeing with the funding model?
Well, thank you so much, Trevor. I would say that the issues with the new funding model, they occur yearly. There are changes yearly. So maybe we want to know the measures that the government is planning to take so that students who are joining in future are not going to have challenges with the new funding model.
What challenges are these?
Challenges like the delays, just like my peers have mentioned. Okay. The delays and, the delays. The delay is the biggest challenge? Yeah, sure. Okay, and we'll pose this question to Edwin Wanyonyi. You can also ask him the questions directly. He's joining us online. He can hear all of you. Let me bring in Wainaina. Wainaina, you've been a member of this funding model committee. What are some of the issues you're seeing with it? What are the challenges? And how should they be addressed?
Thank you so much, Trevor, for having me this morning. I must say that apart from being a comrade at the University of Nairobi, I'm also an aspirant for the Member of Parliament seat, Nakuru Town East. So I bring to you the greetings of the great people of Nakuru Town East.
Nakuru Town East.
Yeah. As matters education, I have to say that it is a very concerning sector. And being a member of the new funding model review committee, a committee that was formed by His Excellency the President at the time when Comrades had planned the mass Nane protests. And we had to call off, and the President called on us student leaders to call off the protests so that we can have a conversation on how we will change this model. Trevor, I have to say that from the beginning, the cohort of 2022-2023, when they were admitted to the university, they were the first cohort to use the university, the new funding model, university funding model. The second cohort, the class of 2023, used a very different model from what the previous cohort had used. Also, we've noted that after we sat down at the committee, we changed very many things in regards to the model. And I have to say that the people, the first years who are using the model right now, the reviewed model, now what we call the student-centered funding model, they are using a very different model from what the two previous cohorts have been using. So I must say that the education sector keeps on, when Comrades come up with issues, I think we have to appreciate what the ministry is currently doing. They have been having a lot of conversations with the youths, having a lot of conversation with Comrades, and I must say that the new funding model is a work on review.
Okay, so it's work in progress.
Yeah, work in progress.
Okay, Chisang?
When it comes to education funding model, we feel as the Comrades that the government is really trying its part to make the education sector more sustainable rather than making it more dependent. Even when you look at the university itself, rather than the university being dependent on other finances outside, it's trying to make the institutions themselves to be independent of themselves. And also for the Comrades, when they are getting admitted, I feel that the model is more reliable right now because we are having students who are getting admitted even without paying anything. That's a plus. Unless you are banded, it's when you are supposed to pay school fees. So the government is really trying to reform the education sector, and I agree with my colleague here that the education sector is a work in progress.
Okay. David?
Thank you so much, Trevor. I believe change is bitter and sweet at the same time. So for me, I know many Kenyans expect everyone to say there is a challenge, but personally I don't see a challenge. I see the bitterness of a sweet change within the education sector, specifically the funding model. 2 years ago, when our first years were being rolled in, everybody was crying that the school fees is too high, that this and that. But then I'm also a person who believes in conversations. I guess conversations have given birth to a transition, 2 steps transition, like our brother has just said. What the first cohort paid is not what the second cohort paid. And as we speak today, every comrade is smiling, specifically our first years and also some of the continuing students in the university, that today some people are paying 0 shillings, some people are paying less than 5,000 Kenyan shillings. So it's a bitterness of the change that will be sweet in the future.
Okay. Let me bring in Edwin Wanyonyi on this because Edwin Wanyonyi is the CEO Universities Fund. Edwin, good morning. It's good to see you here. And
good morning.
There's been a conversation in terms of the delays before we get into the new funding model. What causes all these delays, Edwin?
So thank you, Trevor, and thank you, the Comrades on set. There are a couple of things that happen. So in every new financial year or the opening of the semester, the key thing before we disburse funds is to make sure that we have data to confirm that the students actually are coming to university. Because remember, as we push money, one of the key information we need to have is data. So data causes us some little delay in terms of disbursement of funds to universities. But Trevor must mention that this particular beginning of this semester, we've done some very specific things. One of them was ensuring that all the funds we've received by now, we've disbursed. And as I speak today, Trevor, I just want to mention that from HELP in terms of loan, we've already disbursed close to 21 billion, which is 18 billion going to universities, and TVET, 3 billion. While at Universities Fund, out of the 16.9 billion we were given in the budget, and 4.2 billion has already been disbursed to universities. There's just delay because of data, and we are continuing to improve, as has been indicated. The key thing is to ensure that even as we implement this model, we continue listening to the views that are coming across and work to improve so that then we can be able to disburse funds much more faster. Going forward, and we have a presidential directive that going forward, we must make sure that even before the semester begins, we already have our data sorted out. Hopefully we'll have the students confirming that they're actually joining university. Trevor must confess, one of the things like today as we speak, as the first years who are joining, we have quite a number of first years who have chosen to even move to universities. And remember, as has been indicated, this money is student-centered funding model. So the money follows the student. So we must then be able to confirm that that student has actually gone to that university, and we have data from the university confirming that we have it, and then we are able to push the money to the university. Apart from those minor challenges, I want to confirm that in terms of commitment from the government side, in terms of funding, we're actually doing our level best to make sure that funds are at the university.
What has changed, Edwin? Because there seems to be some consensus in this with these comrades. In fact, I'm surprised myself that the means testing is not an issue anymore. What adjustments did you make?
So there are a couple of things that have changed. So the first one that has changed is the program cost adjustments. Remember, we adjusted the program cost between 15 and 40% downwards, which means a cost like agriculture. Let me just give you an example, which was previously costing about 324,000 per year. It's moved down to 194, and that's a commitment to ensure that the government's commitment on agriculture. Medicine has also gone down by about 38%. Then the next thing is on program clusters. So the high input programs remain at least a bit more expensive, while those ones that are the humanities, the business courses that attracts the lowest program, the highest number, but now have a lower program cost to attract more students to go in, and also that they are more affordable. Then standard capping of household contributions. We financially, the household contribution was a bit higher, but now it's been capped at 150,000 per year, which means the maximum you can actually be able to pay as a household now is 75,000 per semester. And then we also working on transitioning, and which has been input, listening to the views from comrades, parents, and other stakeholders, transitioning from banding to continuous scoring model, such that when you are banding people, you grouped them together. And so there could be a person who has higher problems, banded higher, is still in the same group, but his problems are much higher, while a person who is at the age is still banded in the same group. Now we are not banding. We actually moving from that. We've moved from that. And so each student is handled independently. And in terms of your calculation of your needs, that is done. Finally, Trevor, on this particular one, we also continued to engage on validators, because the key thing is scholarships are the equity player. So we want to make sure that the most needy get fully supported, while loans are supposed to enable that all the students have the capacity to attend university and they are supported. And so what we have done is working with other validators that we make sure that those who are needy actually are able to access the funds. And so this is work that is going on in progress. We engage our partners. We are now engaging our partner KRA. We continue to engage other partners to ensure that those who truly need must then be able to access the funds. And so this is why it's been indicated it's a continuous process. We have improved significantly from when we began. And I can confirm, Trevor, that in a short while, when the applications will be happening, we expect this to be real time, that you apply, you know your household contribution. The university knows the bit in terms of what they are receiving in terms of scholarships, and what they're receiving in terms of grants, and what they're receiving in terms of loan for each student, and then all of it is able to be disbursed on time based on a conversation with the National Treasury.
All right. Thanks, Edwin. I have to take a quick break here on Daybreak. When we come back, I know the comrades still have a few questions for you. We'll pose those questions to you directly, and then we'll allow Edwin to continue with the work, and then we talk about politics within this young team here, find out what their thoughts are in terms of where the country is heading. That coming up in just a short while. Send in your views at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Citizen Daybreak. See you in just a short while.